all the Jews went to sleep. And the Midrash tells us their sleep was very sweet. The night was short. They had a very sweet sleep. And even the bugs didn't bite them. They were able to enjoy their sweet sleep. Tomorrow night's Shavuos. Biblically, it's a one-day holiday. Like all of the holidays outside of Israel, we have an extra day for technical reasons. If you're interested, I can let you know. Otherwise, we'll accept that on face value. But it is 2 days. So it starts Tuesday night and it's Wednesday and Thursday. For time 3,336, we are getting God's Torah. We are getting his Torah one more time. And each time when he gives it to us, he's really giving it to us from a deeper place. It's actually fascinating because we think, well, God and Torah are one. Well, God and Torah became one when God gave us the Torah for the first time. And at that point, he put himself in the Torah. So literally, when he gave us the Torah, he gave us himself. To me, that is the most, just that one thought is the most inspirational thought. I'm done. I'm good. I can focus on that the entire Shavuos. When he gave us the Torah, he gave us himself. And every year, he continues giving us himself on a deeper and deeper and deeper level. And that's why we said it's really important to be in synagogue, to be in shul, because we should be there when God gives us one more time himself. And as I think we sort of touched on last week, according to Kabbalah, according to the Zohar, Shavuos is the most significant holiday between Passover, Shavuos, and Sukkot, even though like a lot of people view it as like, oh, that's the little minor one. You know, you have cheesecake, you know, it's small. You're not cleaning your whole house. You're not building a sukkah. But Zohar says, no, this is the source. Only because of Shavuos and becoming God's people and getting his Torah do we have a Passover, do we have a Sukkot, do we have a Rosh Hashanah, do we have a Yom Kippur? We became his people. He became our God. We got the Torah. We have a relationship. So there's nothing more foundational than that. Everything else, of course, is important. Exodus is very important, and it's all important. But this is the foundation. There's nothing more foundational of all of the holidays than Shavuos. It's the central beam, the central pillar supporting the entire structure of our Judaism. And that's actually the reason why it's one day. It's only one day. In a sense, mystically, it's really 7 days. And that's why, from a spiritual perspective, Shavuos begins on the 6th day and continues till the 12th. Which is why, for people that are aware of these things, there's certain lamentations we omit on holy days, and we omit them through the 12th. Because on a mystical dimension, Shavuos actually is a 7-day holiday. But biblically, it's a one-day holiday. And the reason it's a one-day holiday, and of course, outside of Israel, it's a 2-day holiday, but biblically, it's a one-day holiday to express the oneness of the Jewish people through Torah. We are one, we are unique, we are separate, we are one as God is one. So Shavuos is really all about number one. But it's very interesting because when the rabbis speak about it, they say it's all about number 3. Not number 1, number 3. What do they say? They say it was given on the 3rd month. Nisan is the first month, the month of Exodus. Iyar, Sivan, 3rd month. It was given by a third. Moses, is the third born. Miriam, Aaron, Moses. It was given to a people of 3. We have the priests, the Kohanim, the Levites, the Leviim, and the regular Jews. A people of 3. It's a Torah of 3. The written Torah is the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. Torah, Nevi'im, Ksuvim. And many more. On one hand, we're saying, oh, it's a one-day holiday because the oneness of God, the oneness of the Jewish people, the oneness of Torah. And that's why it's 1, even though mystically it's 7. But on the other hand, the rabbis connect it to 3. And there's many more. I just gave you a few. There's many ways we connect the giving of the Torah to the number 3. Even though we said it's about 1 and the oneness of God, but it's actually about 3. Because really, to express the oneness of God, the number, this might sound strange, but the number that expresses to us the oneness of God is 3. and this is an interesting concept, and I think it really relates a lot to marriage and relationships, but I'm going to tell it now about God and our relationship with Him. Why? Shavuos is all about one. It's about the oneness of God, the oneness of the Jew, of our relationship, of the oneness of Torah. But real oneness is expressed not with number one, but with number three. Because real oneness is not when there's only one thing. Then you don't know if there's oneness. It's when there's more than one, and still there's oneness. So if we're in a place of just one, just God, nothing else, it's like all heaven, all you feel is the reality of God, that doesn't prove that much. There's no challenge. So who knows? Who knows if you went from a place of one to a place of multiplicity, our world, what will be going on? But if that happens, and you're not in a place of one, that all there is obviously is God, you're in a place of multiplicity, you're in a place like our world where there's seemingly a lot of things going on, and still here it's all oneness. It's the oneness of God. Shining in this world of multiplicity, that's oneness. And we actually see this in the months. We said this is the third month. The first month was Nisan, when we left Egypt. The second month is Iyar. And the third month, which just began on Friday, is Sivan, the month of the giving of the Torah. So Nisan represents the idea of the number one, the first month. We left Egypt. Number one, huge revelation of God, but no real relationship to this world, no transformation, which is actually why when because it was us, we're a reincarnation of that generation, when we left Egypt, we ran out, which is very interesting because who were we running from? Pharaoh, the Egyptians, they said, go, 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 good riddance. Who were we running from? We were running from ourselves. We couldn't deal with the physical. We couldn't deal with the evil. We actually couldn't deal with the evil inside of ourselves. There was a tremendous revelation of God. That's one, but it had nothing to do with us. So we ran to cling to that oneness of God. We couldn't handle God and world. It didn't mesh. Then we moved to the second month, 2, Iyar. Iyar is very much a month of leading the physical world. It's actually a very interesting month because every day is a commandment. Every day, the only month of our entire year that every day is a commandment, the commandment of counting the Omer. There was a divine count tonight. Haven't done it yet. It was not yet the next night when we started this class. Tonight is very exciting. It's the last night of the count. For those of you that have been counting, it's always very special to count that last time. You feel like, wow. So every day of Iyar, you're counting. Now we count some days in Nisan, but just a few. And we count even less days in Sivan, just the beginning of the month. But every single day of Iyar, we're counting. Which means every single day we're working on ourselves. Because the whole idea of the count is really self-reflection, self-growth, self-refinement. So we're dealing with the multiplicity of the world. We're refining it, but we're still aware of it. We're aware of world. We're aware of its existence. It's not yet revealed as godliness. It's a month where we try to nullify ourselves to God. Like commandments. Through commandments, you nullify yourself to God. But we're not yet one with God. And that happens in the third month of Sivan, when we got the Torah. Because we take the two, we take the oneness of God that was shining in the first month of Nisan. We take the reality of this world that was shining in the month of Iyar. And we put those two things together, and one makes three. Because from these two new things, from a one and a one, we have a new entity, higher than both, a fusion of both. This world and God, the Jew and God, absolutely one. Because through Torah, and only through Torah, we have absolute oneness. That's what number 3 signifies. Your mind and God, one. A one, and then we get a new existence. The 3, the complete fusion of the 2. And that is what's going on in this holiday. Now, on this holiday of Shavuos, there is a custom, a tradition that is pretty universal to all the Jewish people. Probably many of you have heard of it, which is that the first night of Shavuos, which means tomorrow night, it's a custom for men to stay up the entire night and learn Torah, to prepare for receiving the Torah from God on Wednesday morning, when you go to synagogue and hear the 10 Commandments. Across the board, Jews stay up the night before the giving of the Torah and learn. There are 3 times a year that we stay up all night. The other 2 you might be familiar with. One is the 7th night of Passover, and one is the night that's called Hoshana Rabbah, which is the last night of Sukkot. Sukkot is actually 9 days, but it's really not. 7 days, and then we have another holiday that directly flows from Sukkot called Simchat Torah. So we have 7 days of Sukkot. The last day has a special name, Hoshana Rabbah, and then we have 2 more days, Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, that are like, in a sense, their own holiday, in a sense, an extension of the Sukkot holiday, and that's a whole piece of the Talmud, the Gemara, that debates that issue. Is it a separate holiday? Is it a continuation? And that's a whole separate story. But anyway, why do we stay up all night? So on that night, the last night of Sukkot, Hoshana Rabbah, it's the last opportunity we have to give ourselves a better year. We start with a whole month of Elul, a month preparing for the high holidays. We go through Rosh Hashanah. We go through the days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We go through Yom Kippur. By that point, at the end of Yom Kippur, the decree for our year is signed, sealed, and delivered. But not really. We still have an opportunity to make it better until the last day of the Sukkot holiday, the last official day, Hoshana Rabbah. So therefore, we stay up that entire night. We read the entire book of Psalms. We read the entire book of Deuteronomy. And if you finish those 2 things, you just stay up and learn other things to try to say, okay, this is my last licks at giving myself an amazing year. Let me push. And that's why we stay up the night of Hoshana Rabbah. The 7th night of Passover, we stay up for a different reason. This was the night when God, 3,336 years ago, made the greatest miracle of all times, the splitting of the sea. And every year, that energy of the splitting of the sea shines again this night. And to encapsulate the energy, we stay up all night and learn to try to absorb the energy of the greatest miracle of all time. And the 3rd time, and actually of these 3, the one that's most followed is Shavuos. The 3rd time, and the most popular one, done by world Jewry the most, is staying up the entire night of Shavuos. Why? Well, actually because of something that happened the first time we got the Torah, 3,336 years ago, that we're still working on rectifying. It's an interesting vignette. What happened? What happened is that it was the night before the giving of the Torah, and all the Jews went to sleep. And the Midrash tells us their sleep was very sweet. The night was short, they had a very sweet sleep, and even the bugs didn't bite them. They were able to enjoy their sweet sleep. That is what happened the night before the giving of the Torah. And then God comes, early in the morning, to give them the Torah, and they're still sleeping. And God had to wake them up to give them the Torah. That is what happened the night before the giving of the Torah, which would be this year, Tuesday night. Then it was a Friday night because the Torah was given on a Saturday and a Shabbos, 3,336 years ago. And to rectify that, because that wasn't probably so good that we're sleepy and God has to come and say, no, get up, you want my Torah? So world Jewry every year stays up the night before we get the Torah to learn, to say, God, no, we do want your Torah. We're not sleeping away. We're excited to get your Torah. We want your Torah. We're excited to embrace you through your Torah. We know when we want to give God a hug, we learn Torah. That's the way we can embrace God. We're so excited. We're staying up all night learning. So that is the Midrash, and it's pretty popularly known. It's probably something you might have heard before. But when you think about it, it's not really so clear what's going on in this story. Why not? Because here are the Jewish people, us, okay? We're talking not about some ancestors of ours. We're actually talking about ourselves because we are a reincarnation of that generation. So here we are. For 49 days, we've been counting to get to this moment. Like I said, tonight, if you follow the count, trust me, when you count tonight, it's exciting. It feels great. Oh my gosh, I've been counting for 49 days and I finally reached this pinnacle. If you didn't do it this year, be inspired to do it next year. Make a note in your calendars. It's really exciting. You've been counting for 49 days for this moment. This was the only time in history, not only was it the first time in history, it's actually the only time in history, we've never been able to replicate it, when the entire Jewish people, there were about 3 million Jews at that time, We were all united. We were like one man with one heart. Why? Because we all wanted the same thing. We all were just so excited and focused on connecting to God, becoming his people, getting his Torah. And we all went to sleep. So, what do you think they, or we could say we, because as I said, we are a reincarnation of that generation. What do you think we should have done the night before we got the Torah? What do you think would make sense as the way to prepare for getting the Torah? Here you've been waiting 49 days. It's coming tomorrow. You know it's coming. You know. What would you do to make this final preparation for getting the Torah?
We couldn't study Torah. We didn't have it yet, right?
That's an interesting question. I was thinking about this today when I was preparing the class. Could we have studied Torah? We could have studied some Torah because we had some of the commandments. Some commandments were already given before we got the Torah. So we knew those laws. So that's Torah, the laws of the commandments. So we could have studied them, right? I went through the same thought process, and I was like, well, yeah, we could have studied those laws. That would be studying Torah, which sort of makes sense. God, I'm so happy to get your Torah. I'm studying it already now with the little bit I have. Any other ideas? Like, what makes sense to you? What should they have done? What should we have done? Obviously, we goofed because we said every year we're rectifying, and it's been 3,336 years. But what would have been appropriate? What would have made better sense? Maybe we women had different ideas, but the men didn't listen to us. What should we have told them? What should we have gotten them to do? Well, I guess it's not so easy to think of what they should have done. So maybe we weren't such, losers going to bed. But it's
Prepare themselves.
what?
Prepare themselves.
Prepare themselves.
Yeah.
That would be, I would think, the most obvious thing. Whatever that means, spiritually prepare themselves, focus.
Just like free your time for done with ordinary work or everyday work, just free your mind, kind of like
So
uh,
mentally shift.
mentally be ready to open and learn something.
I
You
think
need time for that.
right. I think that really does make sense. Of course, what Rivka said made sense also. It would make sense to prepare for getting the Torah, to study Torah. And it makes sense what Leah is saying, that there's a mental shift. I mean, 49 days ago, we were in Egypt, and we've worked tremendously on ourselves. The Jews work so hard these past 49 days. We make a count, we make a blessing, and hopefully we remember we're supposed to be working on self-refinement. But they were really doing it. We, in that lifetime, were really doing it. And we made such strides, and here we have the last moment to cleanse our mind, become recipients, to receive a relationship, to receive God, to receive his Torah. I would think, but again, I was there too, and I guess I made the same mistake everyone else did, but I would think that is what would make a lot of sense for me to be doing. Just mentally opening myself up to this new energy. So excited, how can I sleep? And really trying to open myself up to become in a relationship with God, which is what happened by the giving of the Torah. We became in a relationship. Literally, our sages say it was the first stage. In Jewish marriage, there's 2 stages. And the first stage of that marriage happened by the giving of the Torah. The second stage is the ultimate consummation of that marriage, is by the redemption. But we entered into that relationship. So there definitely is the inner work. And yet we didn't choose to do that. We went to sleep. And we were good people. And obviously, all of this is to teach us something. The fact that we know it is to teach us something. Because first of all, everything in Torah is to teach us something. It's very interesting. I just noticed today, I was peripherally glancing at something where it says that the word, of course, the word the world uses is Bible. We use the word Torah. And the etymology of Bible is probably a very fine level of paper, parchment, that Torah is written on. So when you say Bible, you're talking about what you write the Torah on. Torah Doesn't mean what you write it on. It means what it's designed to do. The word Torah means instruction. It's to teach us. Everything in Torah is to teach us something. And it's interesting because the Torah, as a good model for us, is so careful never to speak bad. It will use 3 extra words to avoid saying something negative. And here Torah tells us this whole story about wrong behavior. The Jewish people messed up. Obviously, it teaches us a lesson. So you could say, okay, well, there's a general perspective. And obviously, there's a general lesson we all can understand from the story right away. What would be the general lesson from this story? What do you think is the point? We were supposed to walk away with knowing what we, our ancestors, we did wrong 3,336 years ago. What does that tell me today? What's the Torah? What's the Torah? What's the instruction from this story? They went to sleep, and they were still sleeping, and God had to wake them up and give them the Torah, and that was like a oops moment. And therefore, every year since, we stay up the night and learn Torah. So what are we supposed to learn from that story? The general instruction would be what?
Obviously not to sleep on that day.
Okay, not to sleep. Don't sleep. And instead, should we do what?
What we do? Learning.
Exactly, learn. Appreciate my Torah. Treasure it. I'm giving you, it's like, again, this very simple lesson is very obvious and should resonate. I'm giving you myself. A student of mine once compared the Torah to God's diary. And I really thought that was a very deep, wonderful vision of the Torah. Imagine like you have a diary and you're sharing it with someone. Obviously, it's a very precious, intimate moment, and they never open it up. My daughter, she went many years ago on a trip to the Ukraine to visit the holy places there. And when she came back, as a gift, she gave me her diary of her trip, which was a really special gift. And it was so precious to me. Imagine she gave it to me. I'm like, oh, this is so nice. And I never bothered opening it up. Here, God literally gave us himself. That's what he says. When he gave us the Torah, he put himself in it. You want God? You know exactly how to find him. Study Torah. And yeah, if I appreciate it, I learn it. If I appreciate it, I stay up the night before and learn it. If I appreciate it, I'll always learn it. That's a pretty obvious lesson from this story. But the Torah gave us a lot of details about the story. And again, the Torah isn't so comfortable talking about things we're doing wrong, but it speaks about the night being short and the sleep being sweet and the bugs not biting. There must be something we're supposed to glean from all these details. There's something a little deeper going on here, and especially because the whole story doesn't really make sense. Meaning, for 49 days, as soon as the Jews heard they were getting the Torah, for 49 days, all we did was work on ourselves. And we worked. Because we left Egypt, we were on the lowest possible level of impurity. There are 50 levels of impurity and 50 levels of purity. And if you get to level 50 of impurity, you're stuck. And if you get to level 50 of purity, you're like beyond human. So we were on the 49th level of impurity. We were about as low as you could get and still have some hope of salvation. And we worked so hard in these 49 days, we got to the 49th level of purity. That is so high. Moses reached the 50th level with his passing, the pinnacle of his career, so to speak. We did enormous work because we were so excited and focused. We want the Torah. We want to be God's people. We want to embrace him. We want to be one with him. We want this intimacy. We want this relationship. We're so excited. And the night before we go to sleep, I would imagine the most focused time was that night. 7 weeks before, it was exciting. Could you imagine the night before? So for sure, I have no question, every single Jew was so excited, so focused, and then they went to sleep. And even like the details, like the bugs didn't bite. Why do you think the bugs didn't bite? Because if the bugs would bite, it would disturb the sleep. So it's almost like we were so focused and we went to sleep. The bugs didn't bite, so we shouldn't disturb our sleep. So for sure, when the Jews went to sleep the night before the giving of the Torah, they weren't spaced out. They weren't like forgetting what's happening tomorrow morning. And the bugs not biting means somehow the world was reflecting that this sleep is a good thing. But it doesn't seem to be a good thing. And it doesn't seem like God was pleased with it. Meaning, we would think, stay up all night, As Rivka said, study whatever you can to get yourself in sync. As Leah said, mentally prepare yourself, be awake all night in anticipation, whatever the final details of your character you want to polish. You know, there's always something to clean. Polish it more. Like there's for sure something to do. So somehow, instead of studying, instead of their final character refinement, instead of just being excited, instead of opening themselves up to have this great revelation of God's energy, we went to sleep. Somehow, we viewed that as the best preparation for getting the Torah. That was obviously what we were thinking. This is the best way to get the Torah. We're going to sleep. And spiritually, there was a very strong reason why we thought that. Because, as is actually explained in Tanya, however lofty, however great we can achieve as a soul in a body, living people, you can't compare that to the soul out of the body. We all, and not only us, the greatest, most spiritual giant, a Moses, an Abraham, an Isaac, a Jacob, anyone loves God, fears God, and understands God more as a disembodied soul than as a human being. Because our bodies, by definition, limit us. So all of us are more limited because we're souls and bodies. So how do we become a disembodied soul? Well, we don't want to die, but the closest we can get to that experience is going to sleep. We're told sleep is like a 60th death. A portion of your soul leaves your body. So it's possible when you're sleeping, you could have a greater awareness of God. You can connect to him in a way that you couldn't by day. It's actually written that's people that are really trying to understand Torah and they're stuck and they're really working sincerely trying to understand. Sometimes it's revealed to them in their sleep, that secret. I actually know someone that happened to. I don't know if that happens that often nowadays, but I know someone that actually happened to. That literally the mystical explanation of what they were going crazy with by day, they got at night. Because at night your soul's out of your body. So there's the ability to get things you can't get when your soul's in your body. So literally this was what we were thinking 3,336 years ago. This is what we were thinking. We weren't thinking, we're getting the Torah tomorrow. All right, I want to get a good nap in. No. 3,336 years ago, we were thinking, we want God's Torah. And we've been working 49 days to
Light stuff like this. Yeah, of course. With white shirt.
We've been working for 49 days to get it. For 49 days we've been working to get it. But we can only go as far as we can go. We're souls and bodies. We're human. We're limited. We're trying, but we're limited. So the last little bit of work that's left, we're going to get by going to sleep. Because when we're sleeping, our soul is out of our body. And that final job, that final connection to God, that's how we're going to access it. That is literally what we were thinking. We did the max of our own efforts. The final preparation, sleep. The soul will ascend and get what we couldn't achieve on our own. And that's why the Midrash says the sleep was sweet and the night was short. Night reflects darkness, which here means the not good stuff. There was just a little darkness left. I mean, we've been working for 49 days really hard. The night was short. There's just a little bit of darkness you still have to deal with. And the sleep was sweet because we were accessing this great light of God after 49 days of working really hard. And God's light was illuminating that little bit of darkness inside ourselves that we couldn't deal with. It was interesting because Leah said before to stay up and try to mentally shift yourself to a space of being a recipient. And in a sense, that's what the Jews were trying to do by sleeping. Let my soul soar and let that little bit of a barrier that I wasn't able to get rid of, I sense it, I see it, I can't deal with it. Let my sleep take care of it. Let my soul access a level where the light, the sweetness of that sleep, the sweetness of that light will shine through the darkness of the night. And this was so high and so special and so significant, it impacted the whole world. And that's why the bugs didn't bite. Not to disturb this great godly experience we were all experiencing when we went to sleep. Now that's a very beautiful explanation of why we went to sleep. But then we have sort of the obvious question. Such a gorgeous, positive, beautiful explanation. What's the question then? What doesn't seem to jive in the storyline? We had such great intentions. We want to connect to God, and it was happening. We did. Now we all understand why the Jews went to sleep, but then I would think the obvious question would be, then why was God upset about it? Why was God displeased? It was a beautiful idea. It was totally a focused on Torah idea. It wasn't like I'm spaced out, which wouldn't make any sense anyway. We were not at all spaced out. We were totally focused. We were totally excited. That's why we went to sleep, to connect on this very spiritual level. And it was such a powerful sleep that the bugs didn't even disturb us. And then to atone for that, every year for the past 3,336 years, we stay up all night and learn. Now, God, we didn't mean it. So why do we need every year to rectify something that seems like it was good, but obviously wasn't? Like, it wasn't good? Sounds good. It was good? Then why are we rectifying it? So to understand that, and that's really getting into this whole thing, obviously everyone will have a tremendous appreciation for the idea of staying up all night and learning from this class, but also I think it's a real insight into the whole idea of the giving of the Torah. What was the whole point of the giving of the Torah? You know, Rivka said, well, did we have anything to study? We should say, well, they should have studied, but they really had nothing to study because they didn't get the Torah yet. And I said, well, they did have some commandments. Some of the mitzvahs, some of the mitzvot, the commandments, were given before the giving of the Torah. But they were very different than after the giving of the Torah. Because before the giving of the Torah, there was a decree totally making two separate, discrete realms that you cannot interface between, of the physical and the spiritual. People served God before the giving of the Torah. There was always some godly person in this world. And these godly people actually studied Torah and did commandments. But they didn't affect this physical reality one drop. It blows your mind to think of it. But like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, I mean, the patriarchs, God's chariot, their commandments didn't affect the physical. Mine do. Yours do. Abraham's didn't. It speaks a lot in Hasidus about tefillin, the phylacteries. And it says there's a whole biblical story of Jacob with sticks and peeling sticks and whatever, doing lots of things with sticks. And Kabbalistically, it's explained that was how he was donning phylacteries. That's how he was putting on tefillin. With sticks, okay, it was mystical. It worked for him. But you know what happened after he finished this whole ritual? They were just sticks. Because Jacob putting on tefillin couldn't change the energy of those sticks. And when we do similar commandments in the physical, when a Jewish man puts on tefillin, he's changing the energy. He's affecting the energy of this physical item. He's changing worlds in a way that they couldn't. It was very powerful. It moved me very much that, obviously, I'm sure every single one of us was on an amazing high. I don't know what other word to use for it. Such a spiritual euphoria when I heard Saturday night of the 4 hostages that were released, and I was crying a lot and grateful to God and picking up every scrap of a detail I could find. So one of the details was that one of these hostages, the youngest man, the one that was 21, he comes from the town where my daughter-in-law's parents live, and they are the Chabad emissaries, the Chabad shluchim there. And when he was taken hostage, he was taken for the Nova Festival. They right away went to this couple's house, and they checked the mezuzot, and they found that the mezuzah on this man's door, the room of his bedroom, was both upside down and invalid. So they put a kosher one up, and they wrote into the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and they got a beautiful answer to have trust. Positive thoughts will create a positive reality, and trust it will be good, which obviously is this critical work to do for 8 months. And the Chabad rabbi, my daughter-in-law's father, Rabbi Friedman, he took the boys' tefillin. They had some issues, he fixed it, and he went around to this town to the people of the town on what we would call miftzayim, to get people to put on tefillin. And he said to them, these are the tefillin of this hostage. This man who owns the tefillin, he's sitting in Gaza. Put on the tefillin and help him. And many, many, many Jews use those tefillin, this captive's hostage tefillin, to give him this merit. And thank God, obviously every detail, and of course there's many, many others. I'm not going to go on and on and on all the details of what spiritually was done that really obviously was pivotal in this situation, because the more you think about it, the more you realize that there were more miracles involved in rescuing them than we could fathom. The more you know, the more you appreciate the miracles. And the more you see and you watch the videos and you hear the details, and it's like, it makes no sense that they got them out. It was so many miracles. And obviously all of the things I know about dollars from the Rebbe and writing into the Rebbe and different, lots and lots and lots of spiritual things that were done to help these people specifically, obviously all came together to create these myriads of miracles to get them out. But this one point with its tefillin, I'm just thinking of now as we're talking about tefillin, that nowadays when we take this piece of leather, this animal hide, we make it godly. And Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob couldn't do that. Because before the giving of the Torah, there was an absolute iron wall separating spiritual and physical. Did not converge. You could be spiritual, but had nothing to do with physicality. You could, of course, be physical. No spirituality invited. No spirituality allowed. There were commandments before the giving of the Torah. There was Torah that people studied before the giving of the Torah, but could not affect our physical world at all. And when we got the Torah, that decree, that separation between the physical and the spiritual shattered. And now the physical and the spiritual can and do fuse. And that's the point. And that's actually the road to redemption. That's the road to Mashiach. When we take the physical and we make it spiritual through doing the same things Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were doing. But when we do them, they change this world. And they make this world a place where God is revealed, and they create the reality of Mashiach. And therefore, specifically, this concept of the giving of the Torah emphasizes the fusion of the spiritual and the physical. That's what it's all about. Fusion of spiritual and physical means your soul is in your body. God didn't give the Torah to angels. He could have. The angels asked for it. The angels wanted it. The angels put up a whole argument on God giving the Torah to us. That would be another very interesting concept that we're not talking about now. But the angels had a very serious discussion with Moses. Moses had to win the argument that the Torah belongs to man, not to angels. But the Torah is not about the world of angels. It's not for disembodied souls. Those souls before they're born and after they live this life, they learn Torah. But it's really for us. It's really for souls and bodies, for people on planet Earth. Because the whole point is to change the physical, to refine the body, to serve God with the body. The body has a special relationship with God's essence. That's why it says that by Mashiach, the energy of the body will feed the soul. Because the body, in a sense, has a higher energy. It's interesting because, in general, you shouldn't fast on a holiday. But in certain situations, all right, we'll allow you to fast if you prefer to fast than to eat. But not on Shavuos. On Shavuos, you're not allowed to fast. Forbidden. You want to fast? Sorry, not these 2 days. Why? Because Shavuos is about the body. Shavuos is about God choosing our body, God wanting our body serving God. Judaism does not believe if you're really holy, go live in a cave on bread and water. That's not Judaism. That's not the relationship with God. God gave us a beautiful world. He wants us to use the beautiful world. God gave us bodies. He wants us to use our bodies. So if the giving of the Torah is all about souls and bodies, working with the body, refining the world, the preparation for it can't be leaving your body, going to sleep. However holy your intentions are, the preparation has to be working with the body, because that's God's point. Now, we said we were told this story because we're supposed to learn. Obviously, the obvious lesson was stay up and learn the night before. But for that, we don't need these details. But to get the entire message, now that we unpacked it, now that we decoded the entire story, it's for us to learn a lesson every day. What lesson do you see? What's the application for you from this story? It's really giving us a certain perspective, Judaism's perspective on our, again, it's not the Catholic version of the story. It's Judaism's version. So if you think of I'm going to speak of it in terms of like intimacy, because that maybe is like the most obvious expression of it. But like in the Christian theology, relationships, physical intimacy, that's like, ooh, like, dirty, not for godly people. No, we have nuns and priests and they're holy. They don't do that stuff. That's Christianity. Man's dirty, and if you get into the physical stuff, it's just dirty. And then you have like hedonism. Go to the Greeks and the Romans, and their perspective is, wow, pleasure, go for it, go for more, go for more, go for more. Forget about, anything higher. Man, wow, a very sensual animal. And that's not Judaism's perspective either, obviously. The perspective of Judaism is the idea of the physical, the idea of intimacy, of relationships, of anything physical, is God's gift to us. And when we use it as God has told us is the best way, through the rules and principles that God has laid out for us, we're serving God. We're sanctifying the physical. We're fusing the physical and the spiritual. We're revealing God within these most physical acts. So when you're looking at this story and unpacking this story and the whole idea of how we relate to the physical, about impacting the physical, and what does that mean personally, like for yourself? How could you relate to this? What could you take from this concept? I think for a lot of people, there is this conception, the more religious you are, religion or, spiritual, whatever the word you're going to use for it, like the more you're detached from the physical, the more the physical is not part of your world, because spiritual people aren't interested in those things. And the lesson here, the message here, which I would think has a lot of application for all of us in our lives, is God wants us to use the physical. He wants us to use the physical to express Him. Our goal isn't to abstain from the physical. Our goal isn't to indulge in the physical. Our goal is to use the physical to express Him. And that reflects every part of our life. It reflects how we eat and what we eat, and how we dress and what we dress. And on every human level, like there's no part of our life where God's not invited, where God doesn't want to be. He wants to be in every aspect of our physical life. And hopefully we invite Him into every aspect of our physical life. And when we do that, it's not just a physical life. We're Jewish. We're special, right? We discussed that last week. There's no existence to the Jew without Torah. There's no existence to Torah without the Jew. There's no existence to the Jew without Torah. But it's not just when I come Monday night to this class, It's our entire life. Our entire life. Every moment of our life, we have an opportunity to use it as a moment to connect to God. Because God wants the physical. We're told we desire physical because God desires physical. We like physical because God likes physical. It's not embarrassing or wrong to desire physical. It's just using it properly. There's a famous incident that happened in 1955, in Purim of 1955, by the Lubavitcher Rebbe's Hasidic gathering called a Fabrenyan. And so this is a big event. Purim was like a big Hasidic gathering. Even in 1955, there weren't obviously as many followers of the Lubavitcher Rebbe like today, but this is a big event. So they would like rent a hotel like room, a hall, and in the middle of this Purim gathering, the Rebbe starts talking about the challenges of wealth. How it's a challenge. Obviously, we could all understand how money could be a big challenge, especially a big challenge if we want to have a connection to God. And the Rebbe is explaining this at length. And then the Rebbe says, who wants to be wealthy? Because wealth could also be utilized to serve God. Who thinks they can withstand these challenges? Who's up for the challenge and wants wealth? And about 6 or 7 people from the entire room raised their hand. There were hundreds and hundreds of people in the room. 6 or 7 raised their hand. The Rebbe gave them all blessings to be wealthy, and every one of them became millionaires. And all of them were impoverished in those days. This was 1955. They were all refugees from Stalin, from the Holocaust. None of these people had any money. Every one of them became millionaires, literally. And it was like, why did only 6 or 7 raise their hand? The Lubavitcher Rebbe is saying, and he said, like, it's such an auspicious time. But it's like, who would have the audacity in front of the Rebbe to raise their hand and say, me, I want to have a lot of money? Like, that's not, that's not what a spiritual person does. A spiritual person doesn't say they want to have a lot of money. Like, you're supposed to say you want to, like, I don't know, study and be holy. I mean, in your heart, you might think you want to have a lot of money, but you're going to say that to the Rebbe in front of hundreds of other people? You have to have a certain strength, which I guess is a strength you need to withstand this test. I thought about it last night. I was like, I would have been like everyone else. Stupidly, I would not have raised my hand. I would have been stupid of me. But I'm pretty sure I would not have raised my hand. I would have been embarrassed. So the point is, yeah, it's good to raise your hand. It's good to have blessings of money as long as you can use it properly. The challenge is not to not have. God wants us to have all good in the physical realm and use it to serve him. So maybe, I guess we'll stop here as I'm rambling on, but maybe the idea, perspective is looking at our life and thinking, is there a way I can bring God in? Is there a space I can bring him into something that I didn't think was so godly? But there's nothing in our life that doesn't have an opportunity to bring God in. Nothing. Because he wants the physical. He wants every part of our life. He wants to be a part of every part of our life. And we have the opportunity to bring him in to literally every aspect of our life. To have a meaningful holiday, as we said. Most important one, we become God's people. He becomes our God. We become our people. We're getting his. And I hope everyone is going to make it to synagogue. I hope you're going to make it Wednesday, whatever's the closest Chabad house, Orthodox synagogue near you. You could call them and ask them when they do the Torah reading. That's what I found out by mine, because I'm not going to be able to be with my son Beryl for the whole service. It'd be a little difficult, a little challenging. But I want to make sure I'm there, and I want to make sure he's there. Because everyone should be there when God gives us his Torah one more time.